Hello everyone, my name is John Michael Bushman and welcome to an update of sorts to my Belphemon deck profile. In case you guys notice here, this is my physical deck in all of its glory with some small changes from my last deck profile. But if you don't want to go over that and you just want to like scan through this entire setup that I got going here, which I had to finagle a bit, and as you can see in the corner, the stand that I'm using is partially in view, but otherwise you guys can still see like most of the cards. So yeah, if you just want like a snapshot of the entire deck, here it is. I don't know how people memorize these things, even if it's in a language that they don't fully understand, but I guess that's what translation tools are for. But I will still go over the card by card in case this is your first time just stumbling into Digimon, the Digimon card game, and you just want detailed explanation to my ratios and everything else that this deck holds. So let's get right into the deck profile. Okay, so we're going to divide this deck profile into two distinct sections: the non-negotiables and the negotiables. The non-negotiables, of course, are cards that you should and must have in a Belphemon deck. This is a pure Belphemon deck, well, as pure as it can be, for the Digimon card game. And we're going to start with our Digitama. We only have one of it. Some builds can opt to have 5, but I prefer to keep it simple. Just 4 copies of Belphemon and editing me. We're going to have some work here where we will put the translated card up on screen for our non-Japanese speaking audience. So Belphemon, he's the Digitama of choice for this deck because of the inherited effect, where on deletion, you just draw one, trash one, and that's like that's like 80 to 90% of this deck. You draw a card and then you trash a card, and vice versa. I don't think there's a vice versa, but it's just draw 2, discard 2. All of the cards in the deck essentially say the same thing. So Belphemon, as a way to start things off in your Belphemon deck. And speaking of Belphemon, here he is, the big bad boy himself. It's a little dark from where you guys are looking, but here he is up close. I think I should get him out of his sleeve so you guys can see and appreciate his SR quality and all of its nearly unfettered glory. I have him in an inner sleeve because he's a shiny foil card and whatnot. This is Belphemon Rage Mode, and then the sleeping one here is Belphemon Sleep Mode. These two are the main boss monsters of the deck. Anything and everything that this deck does is basically just a vehicle to get to one of these two cards. But although preferably you'd want to get into Sleep Mode first, because whenever he digivolves, you can put a Belphemon Rage Mode from your trash pile directly underneath Sleep Mode, and Sleep Mode will be completely unaffected by all of your opponent's effects until it comes back around to your turn. That actually screws up a lot of even what the meta can do right now. Having something that can be completely unaffected by your opponent's chicanery is sometimes more than enough to lead you towards a victory here. And it also helps that Rage Mode here, once it comes back around to your turn, you trash Sleep Mode here, and then Belphemon basically wakes up. Then at the start of your main phase 1, you just delete all of the low level Digimon. Everything below level 5 is just gone. Just boom, goes the dynamite. That's the Belphemon way. And then if you have 6 or less cards in hand, Belphemon gets plus 3000 DP and security check +1. So if you have ways to unsuspend him, which I will get to in a latter part of this video, you can basically engineer a way to do an OTK with Belphemon Rage Mode here. And speaking of that, he can do that by himself. You basically at the end of an attack, once per turn, he can unsuspend himself by sacrificing one of your Digimon, and that's any Digimon at that. To go back briefly to Belphemon Sleep Mode here, apart from being unaffected by your opponent's card effects until it comes back around to you, he also has a pseudo blocker ability, if you can call it that, where by trashing 2 cards in your hand, you can just stop an attack from happening. This can be useful in no matter what stage of the game. Because early in the game, you don't want to, take any security, take anything off of your security pile. You'd rather keep it there, and then it's also a way to set up on deletion effects that end up in the trash. We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, these 8 cards, like, completely non-negotiable, no matter what. Up next is one of, if not the main draw engine of the deck, the Kurata and Gizemon package. Kurata is the tamer of this sleeping devil thing right here. According to my research, Belphemon is based off of the demon Belphegor. And in the anime, Kurata is the main villain of his series. So do with that information what you will. And then the Gizemons here, as I prefer to call it, Hariron and Hermione. Interchangeable as to who you can call which there. But that's basically how I call every card that has 3 other members in it. It's just Hariron and Hermione because it triggers a lot of it basically tickles the algorithm whenever you say certain things. So there's that. To go into their individual effects, Kurata here. At the end of your opponent's turn, I'm going to go over that one first. I'm not going to go in order here because this deck profile is already chaotic enough. At the end of your opponent's turn, you just draw 1, trash 1. Sometimes you can just full stop right there, but it doesn't stop there. If you have a Belphemon on field, what you can do with Kurata is you can place him as material for Belphemon and then just delete a level 6 Digimon your opponent controls. And of note, you can only delete level 6 Digimon. You cannot delete level 6 or lower. That is something that I learned the hard way. Because when I played this deck for the first time, I thought I could delete any level 6 or lower Digimon. But when we looked up the actual translation, you can only delete level 6s. So basically, Kurata is only there to get rid of a problematic boss monster that you otherwise can't get rid of. Or at the very least, Kurata can trigger some of the protection effects some of the bigger and even more meta-relevant boss monsters have. And then going over the Gizemons here to coincide with Kurata's first ability, where if you would summon a Belphemon, and then you would wait, no, that's wrong. Oh my god. So if you would, there we go. I think I remember now. If you would summon a Belphemon, and then you have a Gizemon in play, because Kurata states that if you would play a Belphemon, you're going to reduce the cost of Belphemon by the cost of whichever Gizemon you have on field. The most recommended way to do this is to have Belphemon here in hand, and then you sacrifice Gizemon XT, so that Belphemon here, baby Belphemon at least, will only cost 2 memory rather than the whopping 11. Or hell, if you want to be spicy, you can even hard summon rage mode that way. But otherwise, the Gizemons have their own individual effects. The 2 low-level ones here, both have draw effects. Proto Gizemon here is a draw 1, trash 1, and then Gizemon 80 is a draw 2, trash 2. And then when Gizemon XT is put into play, he can cheat a Kurata from the trash. So that's actually one way to conserve memory in this deck, because this deck, at least in this specific build, is not great at producing memories. Let me tell you that much right now. It's either you go big or you just go home. You just pack up and go home. That's basically how it goes around these parts. And then the Gizemons all have a sort of shared effect where if they are deleted, you get to summon the bigger one into play. It's basically an eternally rotating resource loop that some decks cannot quite dig out of, surprisingly. Even as I played with this deck multiple times, if you get the Gizemon engine going, it is insane advantage. You can basically sculpt your hand into digging into the various option cards that this deck has, although there are only a small handful of them. And when their on deletion effects is Gizemon goes into AT, and then AT goes into XT, and then XT goes back into Proto Gizemon. So yeah, this entire package also non-negotiable because good God, the draw engine is insane. Up next are, I think, the last of negotiables. Let me just check what remains in the deck. Yep, these are the last of the non-negotiables in this deck. 4 copies of Phascomon, 4 copies of Asta, 4 copies of Aizmon Scatter Mode, Aizmon himself, itself. I'm not sure. I don't want. Then again, I don't want to know what gender Aizmon is because I do not want that thing within 30 feet of me. And then Calling from the Darkness because these two are limited. So Phascomon here is what I would prefer to be the low-level Digimon of choice, or rather the level 3 Digimon of choice, because of the inherited effect. It basically does what Kurata does. Wait, is it the inherited effect or is it the on-field effect? I don't remember which. But anyway, there's that. It also at least has an on-deletion effect where you draw one, trash one. There is that, and I don't quite remember which one here is the draw one, trash one. Basically, it's the same as what Kurata does. So if you set it up properly, you can end up drawing like 6 cards in a turn, but you'd have to like get rid of 3 in the process. So Phascomon is non-negotiable, at least in my opinion. And then another non-negotiable here is Astamon. This is what I would think is the secondary boss monster of the deck. Because when you would play him, as an additional cost to play him, you can sacrifice any of your other purple Digimon, if I remember correctly, or any Digimon for that matter, but you guys can just look the wording up yourself. You can just cheat a Belphemon, you can digivolve a Belphemon onto him. It can actually be either Rage Mode or Sleep Mode, but preferably you'd rather cheat in Sleep Mode because Sleep Mode will quote-unquote cheat in Rage Mode along the way. So that's more advantage there rather than just going into the angry demon goat thing. And then Astamon also has an inherited effect that honestly doesn't come up too often. Where if you would trash a card from your hand, you can just revive a level 4 Digimon from your graveyard. That doesn't come up too often because by the time you're trying to do that thing with Astamon, the game is usually over or your opponent has controlled you long enough that you will not be able to set up properly. One of the biggest weaknesses that I've seen with this deck are usually the yellow-based ones where they would reduce your Digimon's DP until they die, or the green-based ones where they would basically suspend your Digimon and they will not be able to do anything or do too many attacks and whatnot. And then the other non-negotiable here is basically the Aizmon package, 4 copies of Scatter Mode and 1 copy of Aizmon himself or itself. Again, I don't want to know what gender Aizmon is. And then calling from the Darkness as the other non-negotiable. Because a lot of our Digimon, with Calling the Darkness in particular, a lot of our Digimon in particular have on-deletion effects. And almost all of their on-deletion effects involve you drawing cards and trashing cards. So Calling from the Darkness is definitely a mainstay in purple-based decks. There's a reason why these two are limited. Because from the gameplay that I've done, what I would do is I would use Calling from the Darkness to sacrifice Aizmon here, and then as it resolves, you can actually return Aizmon back to your hand as the whole thing happens. So you can imagine how this deck would look if you have like 4 copies of Aizmon itself. Like that's insane. And then Aizmon Scatter Mode here, it doesn't have an inheritance effect, but it does have an on-deletion effect where you draw 3 and discard 2. That is the deepest draw engine in this deck because everything else only draws 2 and discards 2. So it's card neutral if I'm doing the math correctly. But Aizmon Scatter Mode here is a legitimate +1. And apart from the whole you draw a card whenever you digivolve thing that the Digimon card game has. Now we're done with the non-negotiables. Now we're going to go into the negotiables. Okay, so here are the negotiables that this deck has, and yes, Gift of Darkness is negotiable. Trust me when I say that. So these are all of the flex slots the deck has. Because they are flex slots, you can tinker around with these 3, 6, 8, 12. Yeah, you can tinker around with these 12 slots as you see fit, or as specific responses to the metagame. But because I just want to get to Belphemon as fast as possible, that's the reason why I chose Gabumon as a secondary level 3 to go into, because his on deletion effect is draw 2, discard 1, and that will trigger a lot of the on trash effects and whatnot. So that's why Gabumon is in there, and also because I'm a Gabumon stan, so there's also that. Fuck Agumon and whatnot. Then we have here the BT3 Gazimon, where your opponent cannot gain memory except by tamer effects. This personally is a nod to the current metagame, where memory boost style effects are very, very rampant, and it's a way to quote-unquote cheat the memory resource here in Digimon. So if you want to give your opponent a hard time, Gazimon is definitely the way to go. Although, the other option that you could go into are Digimon that will allow you to gain memory. For example, the BT14 Gazimon. It doesn't do anything on face, but on deletion it just says gain 1 memory. So this is also pretty good. But if it weren't for the meta right now, I would be running this over the BT3 Gazimon. But otherwise, this is definitely something to keep in your back pocket should the meta settle down somewhere down the line. And then another secondary level 3 that you could have in deck is Goblimon. It has a once per turn effect where whenever you trash a card from your hand, you gain 1 memory. So this can help in your offensive pushes. But the reason why I actually prefer this Gazimon over Goblimon, because at least with Goblimon, unfortunately, you already need to be ahead in order to fully maximize Goblimon's effect. Whereas with Gazimon, just plop him onto the field, and then you can do whatever chicanery you can do from there. And then a fourth copy of Gabumon, in case you want even more draw power. You can choose to do so. You can trim down. Hell, you can even trim down on the Gift of Darkness here. But I will get to why Gift of Darkness is negotiable in a bit. Just you wait, guys. But yeah, if you want to draw even more cards, you can also slot in a fourth copy of Gabumon, or a card that I do not have yet, but I will be getting shortly is Raremon, or at least I think it's pronounced Raremon, but put the card up on screen. Future editing me. Raremon or Raremon. I think I'd prefer to call it Raremon because of Japanese naming conventions and whatnot. It has an on-play or when digivolving effect of discard 1 and then draw 2. It's pseudo reverse Uno shit, but it's a draw 2 nonetheless, and it also sets up your graveyard. So why would you not want it in a deck that essentially relies on its graveyard to do all of its plays? And then for our other option cards here, only 2 missed memory boost over violet or purple memory boost. I don't know why the translation cannot seem to agree on which one to call which, but there's that. But here we are. Missed memory boost. This is the reason why I prefer this over purple memory boost is this sets up the graveyard. I'd rather set up the graveyard than with purple memory boost, where purple memory boost does dig deeper because it reveals 4, but it places it at the bottom of the deck. And personally speaking, I'd rather not have it be that way, and I'd rather have stuff in my graveyard instead, where to feed the Gizamon line, or to get Izamon into rotation and whatnot. Something I didn't discuss with Izamon here, he actually gets a 2000 DP boost for every Icemon Scatter Mode in your graveyard. So if you have all 4, this Digimon here can get up to 13,000 DP, which is a number that not a lot of decks can easily walk over. So there's that. Going back to Miss Memory Boost, the reason I only have 2 is because I'm out of space. I am completely out of space. I don't know what else I can cut in order to fit the 3rd Miss Memory Boost, but at least in the games that I play, having 2 is usually more than enough. And you're only really using the Memory Boost in this deck in particular as a way to basically cross the finish line. You're not going to use it for anything in the middle. It's basically, if you play a Memory Boost, you just hope and pray that you're going to win next turn, or else your opponent might run you over just as much as you're going to run over them. Now, probably the most contentious part of this deck, me calling Gift of Darkness as negotiable. Why? This card can be surprisingly bricky. I have run into enough games where this card does absolutely nothing. Because it only deletes an opponent's level 6 Digimon. Yes, it only deletes high-level Digimon. And personally speaking, the security effect is honestly a lot better as a removal tool compared to the main effect. So the reason why it's at 4, because you would want at least 2 of them to land in your security so that you can, when your opponent hits security and then it hits this, by trashing a Digimon from your hand, you can delete a Digimon your opponent controls with less than or equal level. So it's super flexible only when it comes from security. That's why I would cut on this if I could, but you know what? We're gonna do it right now. We're going to remove 1 of the Gifts of Darkness. We're going to put in the 3rd copy of Miss Memory Boost. There. So we don't break as much. There we go. There. Problem solved. Oh my god. Live editing with John Michael Bushman right here. Alright. So now we have only 3. So we have all 3 Miss Memory Boost and 3 Gifts of Darkness. And then the additional effect of Gift of Darkness here, you can just cheat a Belphemon Sleep Mode on top of any Digimon that you already have. Another card that I have in the quote-unquote sideboard, granted Digimon is on mostly a best of 1 format, is Demonic Disaster. Delete a Digimon you control and then just unsuspended Digimon. That seems innocuous at first, and then you remember what Belphemon Rage Mode does. This can, at least from the other players that I've talked to, Demonic Disaster can help in the Belphemon OTK. The security effect doesn't really matter too much. It just cycles a level 3 Digimon, if I remember correctly. But you're usually only using Demonic Disaster for the main effect and not much else. So yeah, that is our deck profile for Belphemon here. My physical deck profile. I think this is a rite of passage type thing for card game content creators all over the world. You would do a physical deck of one of your decks at least once in your dueling lifetime. So yeah, we're gonna cut it here, and if you like what you saw, hit like, comment, subscribe, and share this among your friends. And until next time, toodles!